Karen Whitmore considered herself the backbone of Willow Creek Estates. Every Saturday morning, like clockwork, she donned her wide-brimmed sun hat, strapped on her leather HOA-issued clipboard holster, and strutted the neighborhood with the precision of a military commander. Her heels clacked against the concrete like a metronome of judgment, pausing only for notes. Overgrown hedges, mailboxes with peeling paint, and vehicles parked even an inch beyond regulation. Willow Creek was her domain, and order was her religion. It was a bright, cloudless morning in early May when Karen first saw the SUV. She'd just turned onto Jasmine Lane, sipping a lukewarm protein shake and mentally calculating which fences were overdue for power washing, when it came into view. A sleek black Chevrolet Suburban parked in front of Lot 16. She stopped cold. It didn't belong to any of the Hendersons. They drove a Tesla and a dusty old Corolla. And it certainly didn't belong to Mrs. Lowe next door. She hadn't driven anything since her hip replacement in 2020. The SUV was massive, with tinted windows so dark they looked painted on. A strange, stubby antenna stuck out awkwardly from the roof like a horn. The plates? Out of state. Karen frowned. No HOA parking tag, no visitor decal, no registration in the community logs which she memorized weekly. She approached cautiously, clipboard in hand like a sheriff sizing up a stranger. In a saloon, there was no motion inside. The windows reflected her face back at her, a frown forming between her perfectly waxed brows. Something about this felt off. Not like a college kid visiting family. Not like an Amazon van parked too long. This was deliberate. She made a note. Unregistered vehicle. Black Suburban. Plate, Mike AZB 3478. No permit. Suspected violation of HOA Section 4.3.2. Unauthorized overnight parking. Behind her, a neighbor's sprinkler hissed to life. She didn't notice. Her focus was locked. The engine was cold and there was no dust on the tires. It hadn't been there long, but long enough. Karen whipped out her phone and dialed Wilson's Tow and Recovery. Yeah, hi, this is Karen Whitmore from Willow Creek. We have an unauthorized vehicle on Jasmine Lane blocking resident access. Immediate. Removal required. There was a pause on the line. The dispatcher sounded cautious. You're sure? That plate, might be... Are you absolutely certain this isn't a guest vehicle? Karen's voice sharpened. Do I sound uncertain? I am the HOA compliance coordinator. We have rules here. Enforce them. Understood, ma'am. We'll dispatch a truck within the hour. She ended the call and exhaled slowly, satisfied. Another win for neighborhood integrity. What Karen didn't notice, what no one noticed, was the man sitting 2 houses down in a beige pickup, sunglasses reflecting her every move. He lowered his phone from his ear slowly and muttered under his breath, "Damn it, not now." Back at her house, Karen updated her personal incident tracker spreadsheet, complete with timestamps, notes, and a projected fine schedule. Then she sat on her porch with a fresh lemonade, watching the tow truck arrive and load the SUV onto its flatbed. The driver seemed hesitant, kept glancing around like he expected someone to stop him. Karen gave him a polite wave and even posed for a photo next to the truck for documentation. The SUV rolled away with a metallic groan. She smiled. Order had been restored. But across the street, behind a curtain barely cracked open, a man watched silently, phone in hand. His message was short. Vehicle compromised. Package lost. She moved too fast. The black SUV was gone, and Karen Whitmore was feeling invincible. After the tow truck disappeared down the street, she walked her property line with the strut of a woman who'd just won a neighborhood war. She took one last glance at the empty curb and updated her HOA app. Violation resolved, vehicle removed. Then she sat down at her desk and began drafting her email newsletter. Dear Willow Creek residents, a reminder that unauthorized vehicles are subject to immediate removal under HOA Parking Ordinance 4.3.2. Thanks to swift action and vigilance, One such vehicle was removed this morning. Let this serve as encouragement to keep our streets clean, safe, and in compliance. Satisfied, she clicked send to the 84 homeowners in the subdivision. By noon, her inbox was already filling with comments, some supportive, most passive-aggressive. Wow, Karen, that was fast. You ever sleep? Didn't know we were living in a police state, Lowell. She ignored the sarcasm. They'd thank her eventually. But while Karen was celebrating her victory with an oversized cinnamon latte from Java Bean Cafe, the real storm was already brewing. Miles away, the SUV sat silently in the Wilsons' tow and recovery impound lot, surrounded by a high steel fence. It looked like any other impounded vehicle, but it wasn't. Inside the glove compartment sat a secure tablet, still powered on, cycling through encrypted surveillance feeds. Live footage from multiple houses in Willow Creek, including Karen's. The screen flashed a warning in red. Connection lost. Tracking disabled. A second device, tucked beneath the back seat, was much smaller and more dangerous. A pressure-sensitive container rigged with a fail-safe. If it remained stationary for more than 12 hours, it would destroy its contents. And still, no one knew it was there. Back in Willow Creek, Karen had settled in for her usual afternoon scroll through the HOA forums when her phone buzzed. Unknown. Caller, she answered confidently. Karen Whitmore speaking. Mrs. Whitmore, a calm male voice said. We're calling in reference to the black Suburban you had towed this morning. This is Agent Ramirez with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Karen's face twitched. The FBI? Yes, ma'am. That vehicle was part of an active federal operation. Can you tell us where it was taken? Karen stiffened. I had it removed through proper HOA channels. It was parked illegally. There was a pause. Ma'am, that vehicle contained sensitive surveillance equipment. Its removal has disrupted a high-level investigation into a dangerous individual who is currently believed to be operating within your neighborhood. Karen's mouth went dry. I wasn't told. How was I supposed to know? You weren't, Agent Ramirez said, the edge in his voice subtle but sharp. And that's the point. He continued, more deliberate now. We'll be arriving at your home within the hour. Do not speak to anyone. Do not send any more messages. And do not, under any circumstances, attempt to contact Wilson's tow yard. The line went dead. Karen sat frozen in her living room, the weight of what she'd done beginning to creep in. She looked around, at her laptop still open with the smug newsletter, at her HOA badge on the table, and at the blinds still partially open. Someone outside was walking their dog. Another neighbor was working on their lawn. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. She felt it now. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Across the street, the man with the newspaper lowered it again. He tapped the screen of his burner phone and sent another message. Feds are coming. She doesn't know. Do we move now? The reply was instant. No. Let her panic first. The doorbell rang at exactly 2:07 p.m. Karen jolted upright, heart thumping. She'd spent the last hour pacing her hardwood floors in a slow spiral of anxiety, replaying the FBI agent's warning over and over. Her mouth was dry. Her stomach was in knots. She peeked through the front window, moving the curtain just an inch. Two figures stood on her front porch. Suits, dark sunglasses, and expressions carved from stone. One tall and square-jawed, the other lean with short, cropped hair. No badges visible, but their presence screamed authority. Karen hesitated, hand hovering over the doorknob. She considered not answering, then quickly dismissed the idea. They know I'm home. They probably know everything. She opened the door halfway. Mrs. Whitmore? The taller one asked. Yes. I'm Special Agent Ramirez. This is Special Agent Dorsey. We'd like to speak with you inside if that's all right. She stepped back without a word. The agents entered briskly, scanning the room like they'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Agent Dorsey spoke first, voice low. We'll be blunt. The SUV you had towed was an active surveillance vehicle. It was part of a months-long undercover operation targeting a domestic threat. Karen's knees buckled slightly. I didn't know. I swear. It had no permit. It was parked illegally. Agent Ramirez's tone cut in like a scalpel. You also photographed the vehicle, uploaded those photos to your community server, sent out a mass email detailing its removal. He pulled out a phone and turned it toward her. Recognize this? Karen's stomach twisted. It was a screenshot of her HOA newsletter. Her words. Broadcast to dozens of homes. We're still assessing the damage, Ramirez continued. But thanks to your efficiency, our suspect may have been tipped off. And worse, our embedded agent hasn't checked in since this morning. Karen blinked. Embedded agent? Ramirez nodded. One of our own was living here under an alias. We've lost contact. Karen's thoughts raced. You mean someone in this neighborhood right now is involved in terrorism? Espionage? We're not at liberty to say, Dorsey replied. What we can tell you is that your interference just knocked over a very delicate arrangement. Karen felt her face flush. You're blaming me for this? Ramirez didn't flinch. No, but your actions may have triggered something. That SUV was never supposed to be moved, not yet. And now we're scrambling. Karen staggered back a step, her voice cracking. What can I do? The two agents exchanged a glance. Dorsey stepped forward. Stay quiet. Don't discuss this with anyone. And if anyone starts acting strange, any neighbor, any stranger hanging around, report it to us directly. We're setting up a secure line. Karen nodded rapidly. Oh, and one more thing, Ramirez added. He pulled out a small black device and set it on her kitchen counter. It looked like a car key fob. This is a panic transmitter. If you believe you're in danger, press the button on the back. Only once. We'll be listening. Karen stared at it. You think I'm in danger? Ramirez said nothing. His silence was answer enough. As the agents turned to leave, Dorsey paused at the door. One of your neighbors is lying, Mrs. Whitmore. Keep your eyes open. Karen stood in the silence of her home, barely breathing. Her clipboard sat in the corner, a symbol of the order she once maintained. Now it just looked like a joke. Across the street, the man with the dog, an ordinary-looking mutt, adjusted his ball cap and reached into his jacket pocket. A thin smile formed as he watched the agents walk away. They're here. She's rattled, proceeding as planned. By nightfall, Willow Creek felt different. The streets were too quiet. The wind, which usually whispered through trimmed hedges and neat little trees, now howled with a colder edge. Karen Whitmore stood on her upstairs landing, staring out at the cul-de-sac, her mind chewing on every detail. One of her neighbors, someone she smiled at, waved to, or maybe even invited to a board meeting, was a federal agent. And now, gone. Disappeared. She hadn't been given a name, not even a gender. All the FBI said was embedded operative and off-grid. But Karen was no fool. Her carefully curated neighborhood was full of routines, rhythms, and predictable people. If someone vanished, she'd notice. At 9:13 p.m., she sent her first text to Agent Ramirez. Lights out at 47 Jasmine. Family usually watches TV until midnight. Suspicious? No reply. 26 p.m. Garage door open at 18 Jasmine. No car inside. Been that way for hours. Still nothing. By 9:51 p.m., she'd made tea and convinced herself that she was helping. That maybe she'd overstepped before, but now she was part of something larger, something important. Then came the sound. Clink, glass, breaking. Karen froze mid-sip, head whipping toward the direction of the noise, the backyard. She moved to the sliding door, hesitated, and turned off the lights instead. Slowly, carefully, she crept toward the kitchen, staying low, her heart pounding so loud she thought it might echo through the windows. From behind the blinds, she scanned the yard. Nothing. Then her eyes dropped. Her flower bed, her award-winning roses, had been torn up. Not dug, not pawed at by a raccoon. Ripped, like someone had been looking for something buried there. She unlocked the sliding door as quietly as she could and stepped out, gripping a flashlight in one hand and her phone in the other. The air was colder than it should have been for spring. Dirt was scattered everywhere, her rose bushes mangled. She scanned the mess, and that's when she saw it. A black envelope, half buried under a tipped-over ceramic gnome. Karen's breath caught. She grabbed it and darted back inside, locking the door behind her. At her kitchen table, she opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were photographs. One showed her standing at the curb, clipboard in hand, taking notes, the day she called the tow truck. Another was a zoomed-in shot of the SUV just before it was hauled away. A third photo sent ice down her spine. It was her bedroom window, taken from across the street, from an angle high enough that it had to have been from a second floor. Then she saw the timestamp. Tomorrow, 3:07 a.m. Her fingers went numb. The implication was clear. Someone planned to be watching, or worse, within hours. At the bottom of the envelope was a small sticky note. You interrupted the wrong operation. Stay out of it. No name, no signature. Karen backed away from the table slowly. Her mind raced. Who had access to that kind of surveillance? Why warn her and threaten her at the same time? And how did they know about her exact movements? She stumbled to the counter, fumbled for the panic fob Agent Ramirez had left, and pressed the button. A soft red light blinked once, then again. No sound. No response, just blinking. She waited and waited. Nothing. 3 houses down, a phone lit up inside a parked sedan. The man inside read the latest message. Fob triggered. She's scared. Move-in window still open. He turned the key in the ignition. 7 a.m. was coming. The blinking red light on the panic fob offered no comfort. Karen stared at it, as if sheer willpower could summon a response. But there was nothing. No pounding on the door, no agents storming in, no sirens, just silence and that slow, mocking blink. She paced her living room, arms crossed tight over her chest, the envelope and photos laid out on the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Her mind reeled. Someone had been in her yard, watching her, knew her schedule, her home, her life, and whoever it was, they were planning something. She checked the time, 11:24 p.m. Only a few hours until 3:07 a.m., the timestamp from the photo. A future photo. Which meant one of two things. Either it was a scare tactic, or someone was brazen enough to set an exact time to strike. Her eyes shifted to her home security panel. She'd upgraded last year. Motion sensors, glass break detectors, even a camera above the porch. She rushed to the control pad, pulled up the feed. The last few hours? Nothing. But the motion log? One hit. Backyard. Timestamp, 9:08 p.m. Same time she'd heard the glass. She hit play. The screen showed only shadow and movement. A tall, hooded figure crouched among her roses, digging quickly, yanking something up. The image glitched just as the person stood, and when it stabilized, he was gone. She paused the frame, no face. But the figure had gloves, boots, and something on his belt. Tools, maybe. Karen zoomed in. There was a glimpse of a silver badge clipped to his hip, but it wasn't clear enough to read. Was it FBI? Or pretending to be? Suddenly she remembered. The last thing Agent Ramirez said, "One of your neighbors is lying." She grabbed her laptop and opened her neighborhood watch spreadsheet. If someone were missing, she'd find it. 30 minutes later, Karen's fingers hovered over a single name, Gwen Mallory. Lot 22. Middle-aged, soft-spoken, retired schoolteacher. Or so everyone thought. Karen hadn't seen her in days. No trash cans out this week, no porch lights. The blinds had been shut tight since Monday, but something else stood out now. Gwen was the only person in Willow Creek who hadn't commented on the HOA email about the tow truck. Everyone else had replied. Even the fence guy. Karen's eyes narrowed. She threw on a jacket, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out into the night. The streets were empty. Her shoes crunched softly on the pavement as she approached Lot 22. Gwen's house loomed like a ghost. Lights off, curtains drawn. No car in the driveway. Karen crept around the side, heart pounding, flashlight flicking across the yard. Then she saw it, disturbed soil by the garden shed. A patch of grass sloppily replanted. She dropped to her knees and started digging with her bare hands. The earth was loose, recently turned, not deep. Her fingers struck metal. She yanked up a small military-grade lockbox. Karen wiped it off, breath coming in sharp bursts. She fumbled with the latch. It was locked. But she noticed something etched into the top, FBI property, sensitive evidence. Do not remove. She recoiled, eyes wide. That's when the voice behind her spoke. I wondered how long it would take you. Karen whipped around. A woman stood, in the shadows near the shed, hooded, face partially lit by moonlight. Gwen. But not the sweet schoolteacher. This Gwen's voice was cold. Her stance, tactical. Karen, Gwen said, stepping forward. You're going to give me that box. Karen clutched it tighter. What is this? She whispered. Gwen's smile didn't reach her eyes. The reason I was planted here, and the reason people are going to die, unless you hand it over. Karen tightened her grip on the lockbox. I'm not giving you anything, she said, trying to sound stronger than she felt. Gwen stepped closer, eyes sharp under the hood. Karen, I've killed people for less. Don't mistake me for one of your neighbors. Karen's breath hitched, and she stumbled back a step. You're not FBI. No, Gwen said flatly, but I killed the one who was. The words dropped like a bomb. Karen's stomach turned. Agent Hall. She was living across the street, posing as a stay-at-home mom. Gwen motioned to the dark house 2 doors. Down. 3 kids, golden retriever, perfect cover. Karen shook her head. She got too close. Gwen interrupted. Too close to the box. This evidence, it would have unraveled our entire network. But thanks to your little HOA crusade, she said with a venomous smirk, I got to it before she did. Karen's pulse roared in her ears. Her fingers tightened around the metal. You buried it here? She asked, her voice barely audible. Gwen gave a humorless chuckle. No one would suspect a chatty HOA queen like you. Everyone thinks you're too self-important to notice real danger. But you noticed me. That makes you a problem. She pulled a silenced pistol from her waistband. Karen froze. Time stretched. I'll give you one chance, Gwen said, taking aim. Put the box down and walk away, or this ends here. Karen glanced behind Gwen. Movement, a shape, emerging from the shadows behind the garden shed. Karen blinked, confused. It was Agent Ramirez. He moved silently, gun raised. Gwen noticed too late. Crack! A single suppressed shot. Gwen crumpled to the ground, the pistol dropping from her hand before she could fire. Karen screamed, falling backward onto the grass, the lockbox sliding from her grasp. Ramirez rushed over, checking Gwen's pulse, eyes sharp. She's down! Karen stared at him, trembling. How did you know I was here? We've been watching you, he said. You hit the panic fob. It worked. We just couldn't risk responding immediately. We had to wait to see if she'd come for you. Karen shook her head, still trying to process. She said she killed your agent, Hall. Ramirez's jaw tensed. She did. He retrieved the lockbox and examined it closely. But you found this. That makes you part of this now, like it or not. Karen blinked. What is it? What's inside? Ramirez hesitated, then said, proof of a domestic network, sleeper cells, corrupt officials, illegal arms routes. This neighborhood was one of the drop points. That SUV? It was storing live surveillance from 6 houses here. Gwen was using it to trace federal investigations back to their sources. Karen's mind reeled. She hid it in my yard? She figured no one would look in the place owned by the most uptight, rule-following woman in the subdivision, Ramirez said with a half-smile. She underestimated you. Karen glanced down at Gwen's body, sprawled in the dirt beside the ruined rose bushes. I never wanted any of this. I know, Ramirez said, standing, but sometimes the wrong move pulls the right thread. He handed her the panic fob again. We'll need a formal statement. You'll be under observation for a while, but for now, you're safe. Karen exhaled slowly, the night pressing down around her. The next morning, Willow Creek buzzed with rumors. Some said Gwen moved away overnight. Others said her house was seized for tax fraud. Karen didn't correct any of them. She just trimmed what was left of her roses and looked across the street at the empty house that once belonged to Agent Hall and whispered, I'm sorry. A week passed. Gwen's house sat empty, its curtains drawn like heavy eyelids that refused to open. The garden wilted. The mailbox overflowed. But Karen knew better than to assume the threat was gone just because the villain was dead. She hadn't heard from Agent Ramirez since that night. No follow-up call, no briefing, no statement to sign, just silence. And that silence in a place like Willow Creek, a neighborhood that ran on gossip and predictable patterns, was deafening. Karen went through the motions. She ran the HOA meeting. She sent out a memo about spring. Flower standards. She even delivered a welcome basket to the newly moved-in couple on Elmwood, but her eyes never stopped scanning. At night, she started sleeping in her guest room, the only room without street-facing windows. On the 8th day, something shifted. It started with the scent. She was trimming her side hedge when she noticed it. Cologne. Subtle, expensive, unfamiliar. A scent that didn't belong to anyone in her immediate orbit. It wafted faintly on the breeze, then vanished. She paused, stood still, sniffed. Gone. Later, at her front door, she noticed the doormat had been nudged, slightly askew. Just an inch, barely noticeable. But Karen was obsessive. She placed it the same way every day. She bent down to fix it, and froze. Underneath was a small silver thumb drive. No markings. No note. She didn't touch it. Instead, she bagged it in a Ziploc and placed it in her freezer, just like the true crime podcasts told her to do. Then she checked every lock, every window, every sensor. The next morning, her front porch camera was dead, completely offline. Karen didn't sleep that night. She sat in her living room, armed with a kitchen knife and the panic fob, which, when she tested it again, still blinked red, but didn't call anyone. Something was wrong. The next day, she got a message, slipped under her front door, handwritten. On thick paper, you saw what she buried, but Gwen was just the gardener. Someone else planted the seeds. Meet me where the roses died. Midnight. No signature. Karen's first instinct was to call Ramirez, but the number he'd given her no longer worked. Just a sharp beep and silence. Her second instinct was to run. But run where? At 11:56 p.m., she stood in her backyard by the torn-up flower bed. The wind was stiff, the moon full. She clutched the flashlight like a weapon. Then she saw him, the man with the dog. He emerged from behind her shed like he belonged there. Same baseball cap, same casual gait, but this time, no leash, no dog, just eyes like polished glass. I knew. You'd come. he said quietly. Karen stepped back. "Who are you?" He smiled. "I live 3 houses down. You waved at me every morning for 6 years and never noticed me." "That's good. That means I did my job." She swallowed hard. "What job?" "I was Gwen's contact," he said calmly. "But I'm not like her. I don't kill unless I have to." Karen's knuckles whitened around the flashlight. "Why are you here?" "To finish her work," he said, "but not how you think. Gwen was a blunt instrument. I'm precise." He reached into his coat and Karen flinched, but instead of a weapon, he pulled out a second lockbox. She wasn't. "The only one hiding something," he said. "This one belongs to Ramirez." Karen's breath caught. "What?" He leaned in. "You trusted the wrong side, Karen. He's not who he said he was. None of them are." And then he was gone, just like that. Disappeared into the shadows. Karen stood alone under the moonlight, more confused than ever. She looked down at the second box and knew she was in the middle of something far bigger. Karen stared at the second lockbox, heavy in her hands. The night air felt colder now, sharper, almost as if the shadows themselves were watching her. Her mind reeled from the man's words. "You trusted the wrong side, Karen. He's not who he said he was. None of them are." She debated for a long moment. Call the police, call Ramirez, or just throw the box in the trash and hope it all went away. But she wasn't the woman who called a tow truck for an FBI agent's car anymore. Not now. She'd crossed a line. The truth was buried somewhere beneath the roses, hidden in shadows and lies, and now she held the key. With trembling fingers, she undid the lock on the box. Inside were documents, a small flash drive, and a single folded photograph. She unfolded the photo first. It was a picture of Agent Ramirez, posing with a man she recognized immediately. The man with the dog, but that wasn't the twist. The photo was taken in her own backyard. Her breath hitched. The caption read, "Operation Willow Creek, Surveillance Lead and Asset." She flipped through the documents. Financial records showing suspicious transactions. Emails with coded language about household surveillance and community disruption. And then a report, a dossier, that named Gwen and Ramirez as double agents working for a foreign intelligence agency. Karen's head spun. Had Ramirez been playing her all along? Was the man with the dog telling the truth? Her phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. "Meet me at the community center. Now. Come alone." Heart pounding, Karen grabbed a jacket and slipped out into the night. The community center was dark, save for a single flickering light in the parking lot. She approached cautiously, every sound amplified in the silence. Then a figure stepped out, from the shadows. "Karen," Agent Ramirez. His eyes were tired, and there was a hardness in his voice she hadn't heard before. "I should have warned you," he said, "but it was never safe." She held up the lockbox. "Explain." Ramirez sighed deeply. "I'm a double agent," he confessed, "working both sides. The agency planted Gwen here to root out threats, but I was tasked with protecting certain assets, including the man with the dog." Karen's blood ran cold. "The man who warned you? The one you called your contact? He's a mole, feeding intel to foreign operatives." Her mind flashed to the man's last words. "You trusted the wrong side." Ramirez looked her in the eyes. "We need your help. You've seen too much. You're the only one they won't suspect." Karen shook her head. "I'm just a homeowner." "No," Ramirez said firmly. "You're the one who saw through the facade, and now you're part of this, whether you like it or not." Suddenly, a noise from behind the building. Footsteps. Karen spun just in time to see the man with the dog emerge, dogless this time, with a gun. Ramirez raised his own weapon. Shots rang out. Karen ducked behind a pillar, heart pounding. When the smoke cleared, the man with the dog was down, wounded, but alive. Ramirez was breathing hard, gun still. Raised! Karen stepped forward cautiously. "Who do we trust?" she whispered. Ramirez shook his head. "No one. Only ourselves." Days later, the neighborhood was quieter. Karen's roses had been replanted. The FBI took over the investigation, but Karen knew the truth. In Willow Creek, beneath the picket fences and polite smiles, shadows lurked. And sometimes, the person next door is the last person you should trust.